Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. My name is Pavel, and we are here at Season 6, Episode 11.
I'm confused. You said, welcome. Is that you, me, and a guest?
Yes.
It's kind of like I called Tampa to be a three-peat. Of course, it was for the Stanley, all three. It was like, three-time, yeah, like the old Ric Flair, three-time. Anyway, yeah, man, hey, good to be back off the road. So my confession of hitting 170 kilometers an hour, if you heard that and you heard me say that last week while we were on the podcast, I just made that up, okay? I don't want a fine coming to my door. But anyway, it's a jam-packed show today. We have lots of content, but we have a guest I've been wanting to get on for quite a while. We had to push it back just because of the timing and everything, but it has worked tonight, and so I'm excited to get going. Pavel, are you ready to go? Are you ready to rock?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Let's do it. Let's bring in our guest headliner. Brought to you by JR Web Design. Is your website stuck in the Stone Age? Well, you need JR Web Designs. They'll craft you a website that's as awesome as our show. Hey, welcome, guys. I got Lou Gravel. He is the GM of the VIJHL. For those that don't know, that is the Vancouver Island Junior Hockey League of the Campbell River Storm. Now, I might get this wrong. You are the owner, president, GM of Canada West Elite Hockey, presently with the Aberdeen Wings as an NHL director of scouting for all of Canada, the Western U.S. He's been scouting, guys, for over 23 years of Junior A, so more junior hockey. I'm geeking out tonight. BCHL, USHL, and NAHL. Not as many of you know about that. And also the college levels. He's played as a goaltender. We'll talk about that a little later on. And Quebec Junior Major Hockey League, and for the University of Ottawa GGs and the CIS, that's U Sports, and that was in the mid-'80s. So Lou, it's showing your age, but you are now the current GM for the VIJHL Campbell River Storm. Man, welcome tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you coming on the show. We have a jam-packed lot of questions. So I guess the first thing we want to know is, you've got an extensive background in junior and college hockey, but before we get into all of that, and I know Evan's ready to ask a bunch of questions, is how did you get your start in hockey circles? Like, what's that story like?
Well, it was kind of not a choice, but more of a tradition in our family. I come from a long line of hockey players. I grew up as a son of a professional hockey coach. My dad coached in the American League way back in the 70s. Actually, he was part of the Slapshot movie that was made. And while that movie was made, I was a 10-year-old watching my dad coach in that league. Most people think that it's all bogus and it's made up, and it's not. It was a gathering of a lot of stories. So I witnessed that. And so when you're the son of a professional coach, you're a hockey player. So.
That's crazy. So do you have any Slapshot stories? That wasn't part of my script. I want to ask you, but
yeah, well, some good ones. Like I know that the actor that plays Paul Newman in the show, was a guy named Ron Bloomfield. Was actually a hockey player, because Paul Newman could not skate at all. And one of my father's players is the pretty blonde boy that's got the twin girlfriends on the road and never says anything. Well, that was my dad's tough goon on his team at that time. So several of the players in the league actually played roles in the movie, which was quite fun for me to look back, because I was 10 years old and I know those guys.
Oh, he left us for a second. Well, we'll get back to him when he joins us. That's a pretty interesting story to hear. I think the one thing we want to get into, and because it's been on the front minds of a lot of players, is the NCAA opening up. And I know you and I, Lou, were chatting a little bit before the show, but I wanted to kind of get your take on, what do you think this is going to mean for the hockey, the CHL, and in terms of how players are approaching it, that you can kind of share your side of both perspectives, given what this means, and your thoughts on the situation.
Well, as an ex-major junior player, and having worked for the last 25, 30 years helping kids go to college route, I know both sides of the coin. I really, like we said earlier, I really don't think that the results of that or the magnitude that people think it's going to be like is actually true. I think the major junior player is a specific type of hockey player as a youth, and the college hockey player is another type of hockey player. So opening the doors will give some opportunities to like go back and forth, but I really don't think that it's going to affect more than 5% of the hockey playing community. It's great, phenomenal that kids get more options, but I'm an old dog, and I'm going to wait and see what happens. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to like project because I think that would be dangerous.
Well, I think one of the things you mentioned is you kind of understand playing major junior, what you could have or could not have done. Also, with a lot of the work you've done now in the other leagues, in the junior A leagues and stuff for all these years in scouting. So looking at it, could you just maybe share what you see personally as some of the positives to this around the junior A?
Yeah, you cut off there. Sorry, guys. I lost you for a second.
Oh, sorry.
I was just saying around the junior A game, because you've been involved in it. And like, again, you played major junior, so you were in the CHL. You understood what it could have meant to you previously. But now working so many years in the junior A, maybe tell us some of the positives that you see this can have on junior A hockey.
Well, like myself, for example, I came out of high school, played in the TELUS Cup finals in 1984, made the All-Star team of the TELUS Cup. I wanted to go to the NHL. That was my goal. That's the goal of any kid playing hockey in the 80s. And but I was also a good student. And I came from a family where before my dad became a coach, he was also a university professor. So we came from a very educated family. So the choice that I had to make was unfair. I had to give up school in order to go to the NHL at that time. And then since then, that whole world has changed. In the 80s, very few college hockey players were going to the NHL. If you wanted to go to the NHL, it was major junior all the way, especially when you get drafted by a team like the Quebec Ramparts. So, like, the choice was not really a choice. Kids have way more choices now. And with this understanding between the two systems, I think it's going to give even more opportunities to kids. And it's going to allow kids not to have to give up schooling in order to attain their dream.
Well, and one of the things I was thinking about, so let's just say you go major junior. So before, right, you're thinking about, so you're not signing, because obviously you're not going to be able to sign the NHL contract once you're drafted. You're going to have to wait if you want to still go into the NCAA. But that's not a problem because now you get an extra, 2-3 years, 4 years, even if you wait till you're 19. Older players are then going to play. It literally, and I think we talked off air the other day, it is a semi-pro league now. It's going to be.
It is. And, without naming names, I've talked to several NHL GMs and coaches in the past, and they always said the same thing. The NCAA was the best free development league for them because they were developing players without having to be paid, NHL contracts. So It's like a free farm system. So, that changing now, like the beef that the NCAA had with major junior players was not the fact that they were paid $50 a week. It was the fact that like a handful of players were sharing the ice with professionals. So let's say that Evan is a first draft pick, but he didn't make the NHL. He's playing in my league. That made me eligible for the NCAA. And that was the part that was unfair because 95% of the kids that were playing major junior basically got punished for 3% of major junior players. So I think right now that it will be good in that aspect. It's going to be more fair for kids, but there's going to be going to fluctuate on both sides. There's going to be kids leaving college to go to the WHL, and there's going to be kids leaving the WHL and going to college, but not that many, in my opinion.
That's fair. I mean, the only thing I would say is unfair is that whatever team drafted Evan that first round would regret that decision because it would not be a good idea.
Well, I guess the fact that I never
he would make Rick DiPietro look like a Hart nominee.
Well, I've been teaching for 33 years, so that tells you that the NHL didn't miss out on me either.
Far from it. I think you'd be way better suited than Evan would be at a first-round pick. But
well, did you not mention also that you come from a family of goaltenders?
Yeah, I've got a nephew that's one of the top goalies in the QMJHL right now, and then his the other nephew got drafted third round by the Chicago Blackhawks and was the MVP goalie at the Memorial Cup years ago for Halifax. Alexei, my son's a goaltender, so a long list of goaltenders, and oddly enough, too, we're all lefties. We're all southpaws. Every single one of us, except my son. All the other ones are.
That's very interesting. You definitely, you would think that it would something like run in the family, and you're used to that. But
yeah, well, I get chirped a lot from the youngsters too. But I have one claim. I have two claim to fames. My rookie year in the QMJHL, in my first game, I got scored 5 times by Mario Lemieux. So that was my first claim to fame.
Wow!
No way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My dad had a scrapbook to remind me when I was a father. And my second claim to fame was I was the first goaltender in the QMJHL to have colored pads. So
wow.
I was a pilot project to have colored pads.
Was it a particular set of colors that you were wearing? Or?
Oh, I was wearing royal blue because our Quebec Ramparts jerseys were like the Quebec Nordiques, who's owned by the Nordiques. So we had the same colors of the Nordiques.
Okay. They were owned by the Nordiques back in the day.
For 3 years, they were owned by the Nordiques. So we shared all their facilities, the old Colisée.
They Colisée, yeah.
Like we even had treatments for physiotherapy with NHL guys. So we lived like little brothers of Quebec Nordiques players.
Interesting. That's very fascinating. Well, we wanted to kind of get into your role as a GM for the Campbell River Storm on Vancouver Island, where you are right now. And I just wanted to kind of get your sense what you're seeing, how things are growing in that league, where things are going, moving ahead.
Well, I have to be very, very upfront with you that a year ago, learning about the possibility of the VIJHL following the BCHL and possibly going independent, I was very skeptical. Being an old dog, it's tough to teach them the new tricks. But I'm an old-fashioned guy, and I was also skeptical about the BCHL going independent 2 years ago. I have to admit, I was completely wrong. Last week I saw a handful of BCHL games, and the league is faster, more skilled, less useless rough stuff. It's basically all geared on skilled and the quickness of the players. So that's what the NHL wants. That's the trend. Being tough guys is behind us. So when the VIJHL decided to follow that, again, my old-fashioned ways told me to be careful about it. I wasn't sure about it. After a few months of being GM in the league, I talked to other GMs and other coaches, we all agree the league is way better, way more skilled. It has become extremely fast. It's an international league. We have players from Europe joining us. We have players from everywhere. And I hate to use the term, but in the past we used to call it Jungle B. That's no longer the case. Yeah. It's phenomenal to see the transformation of the VIJHL.
So before Evan asks this question, I just want to jump in there. So maybe you can just quickly allude to the notion of why do you think the NHL potentially wants more skill in their game, which you do see it more, and maybe getting rid of some of that rough stuff or that more physicality, or is there a bit of a difference between those two?
Well, it's no secret that the NHL is ran by American people, and 80% of hockey is played in the United States. And what attracted U.S. audiences was speed and skills. And that's what the NCAA for many, many years was producing. So it trickled down into the NHL. And the games were getting longer and longer and longer because of the physicality after the whistles. They wanted to speed up the game, and they wanted to make it so that players like a Martin St. Louis, who was never even drafted were able to jump into the NHL. Smaller players like, God bless Johnny Gaudreau, those types of players in the 80s would never make it. Even a Brad Marchand, who plays a semi-tough guy role in the NHL, would never have survived in the 80s in the NHL. So I think that we kind of modeled the type of game that was played in Europe and modified it to the North American style, and it's a hybrid right now. It's very, very fast, and there's no interference, there's no hooking that's allowed. So, like, again, it really means that the average player and the lower than average player can't make it to the pros, and that's what we want. Like, without naming names, I don't know if you remember when we were young watching the NHL, we had some defensemen that could barely move, but they were tough. So those are cool.
Yeah, I think of guys back in the day like Rob Ramage, right? Incredible player. I mean, even God bless Brad McCrimmon, who since passed away in that accident. But I mean, if he had to play with speed, right? So outside of Bobby Orr, so here's a quick question. We'll come back before we wrap up. I have a couple last questions. We'll wrap up with the Campbell River Storm because we're along this line in hockey right now. But so coming back outside of Bobby Orr, just from what you remember when you're younger, was there a couple players that you thought really started to revolutionize the speed of the game after Bobby Orr?
Well, it took a while after I stopped playing to see that change, that transformation. But Bobby Orr was Cale Makar. And Cale Makar coming out of the Alberta Junior Hockey League in the 80s, coming out of the AJ, would never even get a sniff. And in my opinion, is the top defenseman in the NHL right now. So you're going to see a lot more of those guys coming up. But it took a while for junior hockey to get on board with that. I think when the Europeans started to arrive in the WHL, the OHL, and the QMJHL, those leagues became faster and more skilled, like right away and very quickly. So the more hockey becomes international, the more it's going to get faster and more skilled, in my opinion.
That makes sense.
Okay. Interesting.
Like right now, like we have 2 Europeans playing for us in Campbell River, and they're extremely skilled, and they're pushing the level of our speed up, and it's got a trickle down effect when you have those types of players in the VIJHL, which we never had in the past.
Is there a player or some players that you believe people watching right now should be keeping an eye on in the future for an upcoming draft or two this year or next year, like the 2024, 2025?
I'm not a huge watcher of prospects. I like hockey as a hockey fan, but I think that again, you're going to see a lot of kids that in the past we would have considered too small and too frail to get to the NHL, and you're going to see a lot of that. I think the NCAA was instrumental in that. If you watch any NCAA games in the Division I level, you see a lot of smaller defensemen, smaller forwards that excel at that level because the game is so fast in the NCAA. So I think you're going to see a lot more of these smaller, skilled players in the NHL and kids that are not maybe even on the radar right now and will come out of the woodworks. Cale Makar was not on the radar, and he took the whole hockey world by surprise. And he didn't toil in the minors. He went from college to the NHL.
Yeah.
So I think it opened up a lot of eyes.
Well, I mean, we knew he did well. I believe, did he not do before? Wasn't he in BC with the V's for a little bit?
Not sure about the V's.
Yeah, I mean, there's a program, right? Also, that's been developing for a while.
The V's and Brooks, yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. Well, of course, some of these teams, I mean, they're now in the BCHL. We've had quite a few discussions around that.
Here's the Brook Bandits.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking about was I remember the year Kyle Turris was drafted out of the BCHL, and I was like, what are they doing? They're not going to get anything out of that league this early, you know? And now, again, I mean, people may say, well, you know, he didn't turn out to be what they wanted for the amount of games and the place he was picked. But, you know, to even get a cup of tea in the NHL, I mean, Fans are so critical. And I know for us, we love watching, junior A or major junior hockey. We find that that's the most, let's face it, if you go to the World Junior Championships every year, that's probably one of the most watched. Why? I feel it's not as, there's so much coaching in the NHL. It's kind of like NFL now as opposed to college football. When you have just one mistake, that's all it takes. Yeah. And it just changes the dynamics and the momentum of the game, right? So
yeah, you mentioned Turris, but if you look at the Montreal Canadiens right now, one of the up-and-coming stars that is starting to get attention is Newhook, who's a product of the BCHL, who played in Victoria. Smaller player, extremely skilled. I watched him last night go up and down the ice and creating a lot of havoc on the ice. So those types of players are able to come to the NHL level instead of spending years and years in East Coast Hockey League and American Hockey League and always being told that they're too small to play with the big boys.
Isn't Cole Reshny out of Victoria playing right now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
he's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more. And now with the merger between the AJ and the BCHL, or 5 teams in the AJ and the BCHL, that the league itself used to be like trailing the USHL. Wow. Now they're neck to neck.
So what? I'm not sure if Pavel has one more question. My last question for you just built around the Campbell River Storm of the VIJHL. So if you're following, you can check out definitely what Luz do. You can send him an email if you're interested, by the way, in getting involved. If you're from the Campbell River area and you want to volunteer, definitely send him an email. He can put you to work. You can be a big booster. Man, you want to be the water boy? I don't know. Maybe you want to be the stick boy. Make it pay.
We have a great fan base. We're sold out every home game. And,
yes.
We average anywhere between 800 and 900 people a game, which is good for that level of hockey. And it's exciting. But Campbell River is the hotbed for junior hockey on the island. It always has been. I never knew why when I moved here from Quebec, but now I'm seeing it with my own eyes.
And you're going literally from the far east to the far west, like as west as you can go. Okay, so here's the last question I had for you before we wrap, Lou. And it's around the rule changes now because you're independent. Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned that you've had a few players loaned up to the BCHL this year for a game or a couple days or whatever it was. Now, what rule changes literally changed? Like you talked about having some European players. Did you not have something in place before? Now you do?
No, it's when the league decided to go independent, we were allowed to bring in 2 Europeans per team. Okay. We have to have a minimum of 6 BC kids, okay, and then a certain amount of American kids. So the recruiting completely changed. I started recruiting the Storm roster in March, and went through all through the summer. Basically, we have 22 rookies on our team, which was very exciting because we didn't know how that was going to gel together. But again, a year ago, VIJHL kids could not get that call up to the BCHL. So it's very hard to motivate a junior hockey player that does not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And now the kids are working out hard. They're eating well. They're sacrificing a lot in order to get up that call up. Like we had 3 call-ups in the last 2 weeks. It's exactly what we're trying to do.
That's so good.
That's really impressive. So we appreciate. Go ahead. Go ahead, Evan.
I was going to say I just do have one text here. It was from More Hockey. They want to know. They obviously have been listening to your Lemieux story, so they want to know when Lemieux came in close to you to score on you. What was the difference in height between him because he was a giant already in junior?
He was the most puzzling thing I ever saw for a goaltender because his wingspan was so wide that if you commit at all, he just made goalies look silly. Like he made me look like an infant. And I came into the league being very cocky, thinking I was going to the NHL, coming out of the TELUS Cup finalist team. And I became very humble after that game. I realized that I was with the big boys.
That's so cool.
It's a really cool story. Well, speaking of the NHL, we have quite a few people who tune in because they want to know about the NHL. And we wanted to get your thoughts maybe around the NHL, if there's anything specific you want to share. But I also wanted to know kind of your thoughts on Patrick Roy as a head coach, as his second go-around with the New York Islanders? Not necessarily how the team is doing, but just in general, the way he would approach the game, given how much success he's had with the Quebec Ramparts. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I do. And I know Patrick really well. I played with his brother, and I also played a little while with Patrick, and I played against him in the QMJHL. So I know the individual. I may not agree with the way he does things in hockey, but one thing's for sure, Patrick was a winner. So whatever he does, he is such a hardworking guy and a driven guy that he will be a winner as a coach too. I think he's way more suited as a professional coach than he is as a major junior coach, because the young kids, the way they are nowadays, are not quite equipped mentally to be, approached in the same way we used to be approached. And I think Patrick is meant to be in pro hockey, but I think it's going to take some time to establish himself as a coach. But I would never bet against Patrick Roy. I may not be a fan, but I would never bet against him.
100%. I think he just gives you that stare down that he did on the bench when it was his last game as a Montreal Canadian. And I think that's enough to motivate anybody to do anything.
And the earplug by the Stanley Cup rings.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm just wondering how much longer until he's just sitting there praying that Lou moves on so he can get his beard back. Well, thanks so much, Lou, for jumping on. We appreciate it here tonight.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, this is Lou Gravel, guest headliner, brought to you by JR Web Design. Is your website stuck in the Stone Age? Well, you need JR Web Designs. They'll craft you a website that's as awesome as our show. If you guys are just catching in, that was Lou Gravel, General Manager of the Vancouver Island Junior Hockey League. As well, just a heads up, he is also the owner, president, and general manager of Canada Wesleyan Hockey. He is the Aberdeen Wings of the NA, that's the North American Hockey League, director of scouting for all of Canada and the Western U.S. He's been a scout for over 23 years in Junior A, BCHL, USHL. We talk about them, and some of you are not as familiar. We'll have a little more talk in the future on the NAHL. So he's been around for a while. Appreciate it, Lou. It's been awesome having you on. All right, bud.
Let's get into it. We have quite a bit of NHL news to get to. So let's talk about your lovely Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, what about them? What do you want to tell me?
What's that?
What about them? What do you want to tell me?
Well, you had them ranked pretty high at the beginning of the season, and here we are.
I had them ranked high? I think you need to go back and look. Like I said, they'll get a wild card. I didn't say they were ranked high.
Well, they're struggling
you call that if you call wild card high, okay, Pavel, they were ranked high.
Listen, for Pittsburgh, that's all you needed. If you're a believer, then you need to believe that they can even make it higher than a wild card. But they trade Lars Eller back to the Washington Capitals for a third and I believe a fourth in 2025 and 2027.
I thought it was a fifth and a third. The one,
yes, a fifth and a third. Sorry.
Yeah. So this next season, it's a fifth, and then it's a third in 2020, which is actually a really good deal because if they're rebuilding, and thinking that the Washington is in a rebuilding stage, that could be a good pick. That might not be a bad deal by Dumbus.
So,
what does that? You didn't catch that. I said by Dumbus.
I got it.
It was an accident, Kyle. I didn't do it on purpose. What are they supposed to do, right?
Well, they're supposed to be competitive. They re-signed Crosby again. What do you do?
You got to sign Crosby. You got to. If you don't re-sign Crosby, then you're out of there. I mean, Crosby wants to be there. He will be there. I have no problem with doing that.
I believe the chance for him going to Colorado for one season to win a cup with McKinnon is going to grow louder and louder.
Against you, because of you and the media, not because of him or that team.
You think he doesn't want to win? We just talked about Patrick Roy and his, thirst.
Why do you sign 3 years? How does he think they're going to win? Actually win a cup anymore at this stage? He's won.
With Colorado?
No. Why? He's already won a cup just to go play with his
one
buddy.
more.
But why do you want to? You're going to wreck your legacy by leaving his city.
Not wreck his legacy.
It does. Ray
So many
Bork
players
wasn't.
leave.
Yeah, man. Ray Bork went at the trade deadline, went to Colorado, won a cup. Good for him. But it wrecked his legacy. He was not a Boston Bruin only throughout his lifespan. Gretzky never got that. Mario Lemieux did. One thing with Jágr, if he had played his entire career there, it would have made a legacy. I don't know, man. Guys, if you guys
I would disagree with you. I think that they have great legacies. It doesn't matter. You go and chase. Well, you do what George Thornton and Patrick Marleau could have done. And if you can get a cup and one more on you, all the power to you. It doesn't matter with you. You make it work.
Not in Crosby's mind. You do realize Crosby's talked about this, right? He's been public about it. He will always be a winner, but he has publicly said he wants to retire a Penguin. Like, I don't know if you've been listening to what Crosby says. Like, I feel like
I listen to him. Are you telling me that if
with Nathan McKinnon because it'd be fun for me?
Are you telling me if Dubas didn't approach him saying, "Hey, we got a deal here with
he was approached. He was approached before the deal was made about his future. It's his choice, and he chose to actually be there. So,
well, then the team needs to rebuild around him and see what they can do to scoundrel up some young players because they're struggling and they need to get better.
Yeah, what do they do? Guys, what do they do? Write it in the comments. Even if you're catching this post, just throw them in there. It obviously, we have two different takes. What's your take? And then what would you do? I know for me, I would blow it up. Speaking of
a few other elite players, so Connor McDavid had a 4-point night last night. Another first-round pack, another captain who's been with one team only. He's at 999.7. They play Nashville. You know how well they play against Nashville. What does this say about this kid who's 27 years old and joining this company of only a few players to reach 1,000 points potentially? And we know he'll do it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of which period, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would lose your money if you bet him not to get 1,000 points because 1 point away at age 28. And I think he'll be like, unless he has more injuries in his later career, if he can still stay healthy like Crosby, and he'll adjust his game later on in his career, obviously, as he gets older like Crosby. I'm guessing all the greats do. Even Lemieux did, right? I mean, coming back from
Crosby's almost close to beating Joe Sakic for all-time records of points. So, I mean, he's 2 away there. He could potentially – they're playing the Red Wings tonight. I don't know the score. You guys can let us know. Speaking of ageless wonders, Alex Ovechkin, it felt like he was not going to score, and now he's just unreal. And for some reason, Dylan Strome knows how to feed him the puck, and he's got, I think, 10 goals in those last 12 games. They're playing Toronto tonight. Can this guy break the record this season? Because it felt like it was a sludge to the end. No, it seems like he could potentially do it here. He's like 36 goals away, I think it is, or 35.
It's looking more and more like this is going to be his year. And what's interesting, if he didn't complete it this year, yes, he will go down as the most goals of all time. And I can't see that getting beat now. Mind you, though, I didn't think that someone could do it already. But here's something interesting to think about. He's doing it in the exact same amount of seasons, 20 seasons of play, like Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky started really, really strong, had massive seasons, whereas Ovechkin has had incredible seasons. 75 to 80% of his entire career had like in the 50-goal range, and he's been Rocket Richard how many times? I mean, crazy.
Thank you, Zylstra. I appreciate it. I'll take the compliment if it is one, unless it's a jab. Well, it seems like we've got quite a bit of records that could potentially be set. But I know you wanted to get into a few other little things. But before we get into Around the Ring, because I know, or maybe your mock draft, whichever direction you want to go, I did want to just announce that the NHL game with EA Sports announced that they will include in the update the PWHL teams, which I think, again, is a great exposure to women's hockey. And more recently, the Toronto Ottawa game had their first female play-by-play announcer again this week. It was pretty impressive. I thought someone else did it beforehand, but or am I wrong, Evan?
No, the first for TSN. So of course,
TSN.
Leah Hextall, who is one of our
that's what I thought.
It was the first full time, and that was for ESPN.
again, the game is growing. Ladies are going to be included in the game, which is good because a lot of people play that game. It's a very popular game. You know, it sells well. People get every year, you know, and then just more exposure to grow the game. So I like that.
Yeah. Hey,
So where do
before we
we go
go
ahead?
over to my Revs top 15, let's just quickly hit in on. I know Lost Truckers on here, so Zil, let us know what you think here. What was your thoughts on, if you caught it? Maybe you didn't catch it, Pavel, on Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Now, a lot of people are saying he had his knee. I don't even know the Devils player that was on the ice, and he had his head, but other people are saying his hand was pushing his head into the ice, and there was a lot of people feeling that a suspension should have came. Now, nothing has happened from it, to my knowledge, unless something has happened since. Are you familiar with what just happened yesterday?
I am not familiar with it.
So if you guys go on X, I believe I might have actually sent that link out. But Oliver Ekman-Larsson is on top of the other player, and I think it was yesterday or another game 2 days ago. But it looks like he's got his knee and he's holding him on the ice, like literally. But apparently his knee wasn't into him, but he had his hand holding his head onto the ice down. Now, at that stage, I have a problem with this kind of stuff because you're not allowed to fight, but you're allowed to hold the player on the ice. And, like, potentially he could fall on him. Another player could hit him. Something could happen on the ice. You got skates. I'm always worried when a player is down and there's scrums going on, and that's not broken up quickly. And I'm more bothered by the officials for not breaking that up, more even so than him actually doing it in the heat of the moment.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not familiar with the thing, so I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, not a problem. Okay, guys, I will put it out on my X, and I'll see if I can throw it up a link onto our Facebook page. I'll do that later tonight, so you guys can get a quick view of it. It's, I have more about that kind of stuff and the roughing and housing and sticking and stuff like that a little bit later on some of our stuff. So why don't we go ahead and we'll move over, guys, over to tonight's Revs Top 15.
Revs Top 15.
Brought to you by the electronic hard rock band Penny Billionaires. Look for them wherever you find your music. Hey, folks, so today I'm not throwing up some more lists for you. Right now, I've been having, I'm finding we got a top 4 to 6 players, and now it's just mushing all in, and it's taking me longer than normal. And what I'm finding, Pavel, is I'm talking to more scouts and folks like Lou, who have saw some of these players. Now, these are all major junior mostly, and somewhere over in Europe, but most were major junior. And then NCAA, of course, right, we'd be working with. So in there, if you guys recall, so I have James Higgins first. Right now, in a mock draft, he's going to the Predators. Could you imagine? He signed Marcia Show and Stamkos, and they are the worst team in the league. We'll talk about that in some NHL news. But James Higgins, the smooth skater, this is what I'm worried about right now. And I mentioned this is his season to get moved out of that first. 8 games. Now, they play a lot less, you got to remember, than Major Junior. 8 games. He still only has 1 goal, but he does have 10 assists for 11 points. Not bad. It's decent, but he's a number 1 overall pick. I expect more out of James. He's 5'10", 106, about 170 pounds. But I will say, and I said it early, and I've said it often, you go check out the rankings. Nobody has Michael Misa number 2. He's just moving up now to, I think, a 3. Sportsnet Bukala has got him ranked up there recently. 6 feet, 174. He is the second highest scoring CHL player. Now, if you go by games, he could be up. We'll see what happens tonight. I'm going to update you why. But Michael Misa at 6 feet, 175 pounds, 18 games. You guys ready? 18 games, 22 goals. 22 goals, 13 assists, and he's got 35 points. He's almost 2 points a game, and it's not changing. So that is amazing. I had him looked at a 3-4, and I moved him up to a 2. Right now, he's going to be competing for number 1 if he's still carrying this over in another month for me. Then there's Porter Martone. He's 6'3", 170, 16 games, 16 goals, 16 assists for 32 points. That right wing, that big 6'3" body, like Byfield kind of a body, but he knows how to use it. It's incredible. But I am worried. So, Pavel, I talked all about 6'5" Roger McQueen. And I know, actually, Zill, you're listening. You saw Roger McQueen. Nothing was special in that game against Saskatoon. But you did say that when he had the puck, he looked dominant with it. Now, he has been hurt. That's been the problem. But again, so he still only has 8 games with 11 points, but he does have 8 goals. So it's been a crazy. But let me just say, I don't know the score tonight. If you guys have been watching, I haven't had a chance because the game just started a little while ago. Gavin McKenna. We've been talking to him about him for 2 years. Guys, Gavin McKenna is the #1 scorer. We mentioned it last week on the show with Michael Devellano. He is still the #1 CHL player. He has 37 points. He's a draft 2 years out. He's not even eligible this year, Pavel. 37 points in 19 games. I mean, he is 1 point away from 2 points a game, and he has 11 goals in 20. And so I'm guessing against the Oil Kings tonight, he's lighting it up, buddy. It is an interesting year when it comes to these junior players.
World's Top 15.
Brought to you by the electronic hard rock band Penny Billionaires. Look for them wherever you find your music.
All righty. So, do you want to get into Around the Rink? Because there's some stuff going on there.
Well, why don't we hit a little bit more on a couple of the other things you had brought up? We don't need a lot of time, but let's take a moment and talk about the Hockey Hall of Fame. We were so busy with Devellano last week.
Yeah, there was a few things. So there was the ceremony that took place. Jerry Moronic finally got in. He had a beautiful speech. Pavel Datsyuk, the Magic Man, the way he dangled, the way he played. He is now in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Shea Weber talking his experience playing through all those injuries and how he was pretty much a mummy by the end there in that 2020 run to the Stanley Cup final with the Montreal Canadiens, and just how he didn't want anyone to worry about his condition and how he was pretty much just bones and tape put together. But he's a trooper. He's a battler. He's physically a very tough mental dude. He's got a slap shot that can ring off the bar and really make an impact. I mean, I would not want to be the guy blocking that shot.
I'm the guy catching it.
But yeah, some notable players going into the thing, including Belders, and yeah,
someone
it was a
notable,
ceremony.
Someone notably was not put in.
That's true. Alexander Mogilny was once again left off the sheet, and I don't know why the NHL has this a thing where they're upset about him being in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I don't know what it is.
So I will say,
but
I did go in right after I saw it. I was bothered. I thought Roenick because Roenick didn't have a cup, and I thought, well, but McGillney only has one. And then I looked at it, and McGillney's later career, he was a role player. He wasn't a top end, whereas Roenick was a top end player for a long time, big, tough. And so I looked at the numbers. Now, of course, McGillney played less, but as I'm looking at it, it's close, really close, working between the two. But here's the thing. It's the Hockey Hall of Fame. And the fact that he started it for Russian players to be over here, the Datsyuks, and I find that so disrespectful. Like, I feel the fact that he made that big a change in hockey, he changed history by defecting and coming over. And everyone else wanted to do that. And he
put his life on the line.
Yeah, and he had way higher seasons than his glory years. I just don't get how you don't put him in there and you continue to put I get it, it's hard, but waiting that many years, like, I'd like to talk to someone that actually has an idea of what's really actually going on, right?
Well, according to Zylstra, he's a U.S. player, so that's the favoritism that exists there.
Oh,
I don't know if there's something, but it's not like, there's always been tension with Russia. There's always been successful Russian players. You look at Nikita Kucherov, you look at Alexander Ovechkin, who we mentioned earlier. There's many players in the game who are high elite Russian players. Goalies, Shesterkin, Varlamov, Vasilevsky, and yet, these players are coveted, but they were inspired by players like Mogilny because they grew up watching these guys, and they inspired them to play. And so you need to honor the past, and you need to honor the guys that paved the way, so that we have the legends that we do now, right? And moving forward, it's going to be the same, where you pay it forward to the legends that were once. in the game. But that's just my thoughts. I wish he was in the Hall of Fame, but it was a nice ceremony. I appreciated it. We're going to be interesting to see who gets nominated next year. Some notable names are Zdeno Chara, Ryan Getzlaff, potentially first ballot.
Didn't Mogilny become a U.S. citizen, though, after defection and played
probably.
for the Team USA? I have to check that out.
100%
That
sure.
goes back a little bit. That's okay. We don't need that. But, and in other news, guys, something to think about. It was brought up at the beginning of the show. What about those Pittsburgh Penguins that Evan likes? I've been saying for a while, like it's been over a year that I've said that Mike Sullivan has to go as much as he's been an icon there. And so that brought us up to the question that Pavel was thinking about as well is who's going to be the first coach to go here? Like, I mean, which coach is on the hot seat right now, Pavel?
Martin St. Louis, I think, in Montreal. I think them being last. I know that they like him, but I think they expected a little bit more from Montreal this year. I watched the game versus Buffalo where they won 7-5. It was a very back and forth. Yeah. Buffalo, like there was no defense. It was all offense. So good for the fans. But, it's been their first win in a while. Montreal has really struggled, and he's on the hot seat. And there's been a lot of rumblings in Montreal land, in Canadiens fandom, about him potentially going. Now, I think you should see it through. There was rumblings, I believe, that what's his name? The GM, Jeff Gordon, had met with Gerard Gallant. Now, I don't know if the rumors are true, but potentially that could be a replacement that could be seen. It's hard to say because it hasn't happened yet, but we're already getting to Thanksgiving in the United States. And we know that we talk about how if you're 4 points out of a playoff spot or more, it's hard to claw your way back into the playoffs. So Pittsburgh's one of them. Montreal could be one of them. I dare to say, I know he just signed a contract, but in Buffalo, I mean, things were supposed to change. Lindy Ruff came back. Are they doing enough? Does he have enough personnel? I mean, it's goaltending again is the big issue and a little bit of the back end. Yeah. You have good players and pieces in Buffalo, but what is going on that you can't string together some good wins? No worry in Montreal or in Ottawa. Things are kind of coming along. The team's been going well. The other team, again, I know they weren't supposed to be very competitive, but Columbus, Dean Evison just brought in. What does that mean for the team? Would he be let go, or is there something else? That's just some of the teams that I think you think about, unless you have some in mind.
Yeah, no, those are the main ones. I think Columbus, Dean Evison's not going to be shot up. And by the way,
John
I see
Tortorella, maybe? I can't see John Tortorella.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about him in a little while here. Well, by the way, I just want to, I know you're just catching quickly looking in, Linda. So she helped us get Lou Gravel on. She is the owner of the Campbell River Storm up in the VIJHL. Guys, go to the first 30 minutes of the show, and you'll be able to see all the stuff that we chatted with. So, Linda, if you didn't get on earlier, you'll have to rewind and go back after the show's done and check out Lou. He had some great stuff, and everyone's pretty excited about the VIJHL. So,
shout out to Grant for tuning in. We appreciate you. I love hearing from you online when we chat on Facebook. It's always good. Silstra says there's 15 days till Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's coming up soon. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, why don't we go to Around the Rink and talk about some other stuff that is going on?
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
First up, I just want to say, guys, if you haven't caught the Kalkaska Battlers, I did put up one of their games. You can go to their YouTube channel. They are one of our partners that work with us, so check them out. We are going to be planning in the new year. We're going to get a coach, and we're actually going to get a couple one or two players. I'm not sure if we'll join. I'm thinking we might get them to join together. I was thinking, it would be really cool if we got them in the dressing room, like we had Howie Draper, who was with the Pandas, the U of A Pandas women's team, and also the first New York PWHL team. Previously, he had coached, where he came in from the dressing room with his little charts and stuff. And I'm thinking, let's get the Battlers in there and bring us in, and then we can kind of talk to. It'll be a blast because they're probably going to like rib each other. And the guys, definitely check out the Kalkaska Battlers. They're an incredible group, and they're doing quite well this season. So really good to hear that. So let's talk about around the rink. So something that I just saw, and again, you probably didn't get this. It's the people that I'm kind of, it's interesting. All your algorithms when you're on your social media will show different things. Obviously, I'm looking at a lot of inappropriate hockey, but I tried to download it to show you. But in minor hockey, this kid comes up from behind and he's mad, getting hit in a corner, and he comes back towards the hash marks and he takes his stick and smacks it right in the back of the head. The guy goes down and he's like, ow, ow. You can see he's like breathing. Like, how could you ever play hockey like that again? And my rebel goes back to the tomahawk even and some of the other plays that we saw in the NHL. Like when someone like Pietrangelo gets away with a tomahawk coming down against Nurse, it was acceptable, you know, and like those things shouldn't just be a game suspension. Anything, and I know Zill has a different take on fighting, but this is why I like fighting.
That's not
rather
fighting.
have fighting get hurt, people body checking and getting into fights because of. I just don't want stage fighting off for the face-offs. That's what I don't like. But I'll tell you why. It's because I think they go to sticks. You can't body check. I'm going to stick you. I'm going to trip you. I'm going to slash you. I mean, you know who's really bad at that? Is Draisaitl. He smacks and hacks people. You know who else? Nathan McKinnon. You know who else? Sidney Crosby. Watch them. I love the players. But why do they do it? Because it gets done to them. It's an ongoing thing in the NHL, and it's carried down to minor hockey. And then how about this in beer hockey? Just a side note, and ball hockey. You've seen it. How many fights? Like, why is it all of a sudden okay to be angry and get in a fight off the ice or off the rink? Like, that's what bugs me. You can't leave it out there. You need to leave it right there. You can't handle it there. And if anyone does something without another person knowing and stick swinging, I think it's, man, kick them out of that rink. Make sure you put their name out there. Expose it to all minor hockey, major, junior, professional. I think we need to outlaw this crap. That's my rant. I didn't even go on a rant.
I appreciate. No, I would agree with you. I hate having to agree with you, but there's a certain level of physicality that's acceptable and fun to watch in hockey. But when it's intent to injure or it's, you know, like egregious, I would not be happy. But again, it's set by the league, all the leagues, and how they set the suspensions, how they set the tone, how refs set the game up and have conversations, you know, that all dictates what's going to happen. And when you can figure out a good happy medium, that's when you see the best game. But yeah, when you're starting at a young age and you react like that, that's uncool. And I would not want to play like that.
All right. Well, I got you guys going. We're going to sideswipe. We'll take another show and actually have a bunch of guests on again and have maybe some roundtable on fighting and roughing and checking and all the stick swinging and Euros and stuff like that. But why don't we come out of around the rink? We got a little bit more NHL news before we do our wrap up on hockey history today.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
It's brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
All right. Update us on some of the latest NHL news, some stuff that's out there people may or may not be aware of.
All right. Well, the Sabres also claimed James Reimer today off waivers, back from the NHL Ducks after they put him on waivers. I know he's been going through a bit of a gory carousel. I'm looking at Eric Comrie there for a bit, and Forsberg, who had that a while back as well. You know, Sabres, again, they needed a little bit of depth in net because I believe Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is out for a little bit. He needs a little bit of time. Devin Levi's been a serviceable backup, needs to be a bit better, but, you know, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is probably their best number one, and they need someone better there to play, right? And again, we talked about the Sabres kind of keeping the puck out of their own net after that 7-5 loss to the Montreal Canadiens. Insider trading, Pierre LeBrun is talking to GM's executive wanting to get a max term deal, which is currently 8 years for a home team and as a UFA. So that's something being discussed after the GM meetings that just took place. It will be interesting to see because the cap or the I can't even think of the word, the agreement,
The collective bargaining agreement. CBA.
Collecting bar CBA. I was like, I can't think right now. Is coming up for renewal here, so they're going to be renewing for 2026. So they want to make sure they really get that done, and maybe some things get changed. And I know we've talked here about first round picks, and whether you call him a bust or not. But Alex Lafreniere, who's had a really strong start to the season and a really good playoffs last season, and it's going to get paid next year by the New York Rangers. Has he made his way in the conversation to potentially join Team Canada in the Four Nations Cup that happens next year? Now, I know the teams are going to be announced on December 4th, but would you, Evan, consider putting him into consideration, bringing him up, given that they're also considering Tom Wilson for that physical toughness, amongst a few other players like Mackenzie Weegar after – I believe it was Don Sweeney of Boston and Doug Armstrong of St. Louis were going to be passing through Calgary when their teams faced. Your thoughts on that?
I think if you have Wilson to play the U.S. and then he can sit the other two, the reason is because it's not a rough and tough tournament. It's short. You got to be careful. It's suspension.
Wilson is Canadian, by the way.
No, I said against the U.S.
Oh, against the
U.S. Referring to, right? Because the U.S. will be the only tough team. You're not looking at Sweden and Finland. I mean, you don't got Russia in there that you're trying to manhandle, with it. So, but Lafreniere, I find interesting because he is a very complimentary player, an incredible two-way player. He's very strong, and he's really grown into his frame and done very well with guys like Panarin. So imagine. There's some speculating that he could get Hyman's spot on the left wing with McDavid because they need to find a player that would be similar, dig in the corners, but has skill. Not sure that would happen if he would get that high up. Frankly, I'd rather put a Mark Scheifele up on that left wing to work with McDavid. I know some people have McKinnon with Crosby. I would put McKinnon with McDavid based on the World Cup back to Team North America. Those two guys together. I get the Crosby McKinnon thing, but I think if you got Marchand, just put Marchand with Crosby. They got the chemistry. You got centerman to kind of float in and out. But I don't think Hyman's going, dude. I don't think you got to earn it. And how much time does he have left before they select?
A month. No, well, technically they already should know because December 4th is when they're going to release the rosters. So
yeah, but they probably have a couple bubble. They got to have some bubble players, right?
Yeah. Injury could still happen. So it will be interesting to see. We're going to go through the rosters once they get released, and we can kind of give our takes. Now, I know you guys are amazing when you're tuning in. We have quite a few tuning in from all around the world tonight. And sometimes you guys send us questions. And I know one fan asked Evan, he wanted to ask about the Bruins, Boston Bruins, with their recent slump being the worst 5-on-5 team right now, or is it the worst Boston?
Well,
Boston
so his question was framed to me. He said, is there a worse 5-on-5 team than the Bruins? Right now. And he's a fan of the Bruins. So that was kind of an interesting. Now, I didn't have a chance to go through and look at this a little bit more in depth. I did get it last week. I didn't have a chance to pull it on the show. But I haven't followed up on the analytics or the stats line on this. So if you are following this later, if someone like Kyle is following or Grant Cummings, by the way, guys, make sure you go. I'd just like to mention that definitely go to our website, 2guys@hockeytalk.com. And in there, you can actually find articles that we have written. So Grant Cummings is the guy who writes a lot of our Bruins articles. We have guys that are writing all around college hockey. We got Russian hockey. We got weekly updates coming in. I like to throw different articles that are a little bit more around the hockey era of draft picks and stuff. I have another one that I'm ready to kind of bring out, and I'm going to give you different ideas. Or goalies, voodoo. I'll talk about draft picks. I am going to put up some of the drafts, but I'm waiting till December, everyone. But again, go check out those articles, as well as our former guests, like Lou Gravel, who came on from the VIJHL, Campbell River Storm. So we're going to get him up. Over Christmas, we'll definitely do our best to get as much updated. It's always a difficult one because we have to navigate our personal life. We have to navigate our work life and then still work within our hockey life. So in fact, hockey becomes our wife, essentially. Sometimes when it comes to, especially on Wednesday evenings, who is our wife? Our hockey is our wife and our life.
So my understanding is that 5-on-5 ranking right now, Boston is at number 10 with in terms of the stats.
Okay.
So it's not the worst. I think the worst team right now is the Sharks.
So I think the last 3-4 games since he had
maybe that's why they've dropped a bit. But that doesn't. But the question is, it's a little hard to answer because does that mean 5-on-4 scoring chances, 5-on-5 defensively, 5-on-5 results based, like shots based? Like there's so many specific statistics that we want to know. So
who is ranking right now the worst right now 5-on-5?
At San Jose.
Okay, is there a bottom few teams?
Yeah. So the ones that I was looking at, through Number Fire here is San Jose, Chicago at 31, Pittsburgh at 30, St. Louis at 29, Detroit at 28, Philadelphia Flyers at 27, and Columbus at 26.
That's fair.
And that's updated daily, and that's the Nerd, which is that's the minus record points projection. Let me just take a look. I'm just digging through the numbers here.
Yeah, well,
rookie race. Michkov's making a Hudson for himself. Lane Hudson's been pretty fun, although he makes a lot of lapses in Montreal. That's been really fun to watch him.
And in all fairness,
Celebrini has been really phenomenal when he's in the lineup. He makes that team way better. Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, no, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, so that's part of the thing. I think the rookie race, I'm going to really look close once we come to the NHL break at Christmas. It's going to give, I think, a good indicator. And I would go on a points per game basis for both goals and assists. What I find impressive when it comes to rookies is rookies that are not just setting up plays, but rookies that are scoring goals. That's the hardest thing to do in the world in hockey. And that's at the highest level, to score goals. So if that happens, I mean, yeah, definitely, man, around that. So.
Yeah, so it really depends on what you're asking for Boston, because depending on like what the scores are supposed to be adjusted, rebound shots against, high danger chances, low danger chances, hits, like things like that, shot attempts, goals for, goals against. There's quite a few stats out there, but yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the time, man. 8:04. Right. It's been.
We're running behind. 2 guys in overtime. Right. Let's finish up with hockey history, and we'll close it out.
Okay. You want to go ahead and run it, and I'll get myself ready.
You got it. Hockey history.
The Kalkaska Battlers presents Hockey History. Catch the Kalkaska Battlers as they compete in the APHL. Check the skills, speed, heart. Make sure you catch a game and experience the thrill of live hockey. Go Battlers!
Go Battlers, man. Go Battlers. They're getting a lot of advertising time tonight. So, Andrew, we expect you to send those that team over. We want a full group photo picture, autograph to 2 guys in hockey talk. Hey, maybe that's what we should ask them for, eh? All right, guys, let me take you back in time to 1986. This was a special day in my life. I was excited about a player on November 13th who scored his first career NHL goal for the Calgary Flames, and it was Brett Hull. Yeah, for all of you that have no clue because you didn't follow at the beginning, Brett Hull was a Calgary Flame. And so he scored in the 4-3 win over the Hartford Whalers, the most iconic, the Brass Bonanza, the most iconic song, and one of the cool, that I think it is, and then one of the coolest jerseys ever made. But think of this. He went on to score, Brett Hull, 741 goals in his career. That is the 4th most in league history when we're talking about even Ovechkin. And remember, his health was nothing like a guy like Ovechkin. So I just want to share, I thought, because we're going back in time, share a quick story to wrap up today's. So a classic Brett Hull story involves his time with the St. Louis Blues under what we know as Iron Mike. So Iron Mike was Mike Keenan. He was a strict coach. He was known for his intense style. He would once now when we said intense style, he yelled, he swore, he did whatever. Now he once ordered Brett Hall to serve a penalty. Now Hall is an individualist. If you know him, just like if you guys know guys that were like a Phil Kessel personality, but even more like a Jeremy Roenick. So Brett Hall, what he does in this storyline, he famously says to Mike Keenan, "I don't kill penalties, Mike." Well, Keenan is not one to back down. He insists that Hall goes to the penalty box. And so Hall reluctantly obliges. He doesn't want to do this. And as he's skating to the penalty box, he's dragging his stick behind him, and he unbuttons his chin strap and then gets into the box. Once he gets in the box, he proceeds to sit down, and he casually watches the game as if he were a spectator rather than someone that was just penalized player in that moment. So knowing that this incident is humorous, it perfectly encapsulates Hall's unique personality and his willingness to challenge authority. It really is a story for me that has become a legend among hockey fans, and really a testament to Hall's iconic status. And so I just want to say, if you have never followed anything on Brett Hall, you definitely need to consider doing so in the future. This guy is incredible. And in fact, in the new year, during the offseason, the downtime for us in 2 weeks of Christmas, I am actually going to write. I did one on the legendary Brett Hall. Now I want to, and the Golden Jet. Now I want to call about the Golden Brett and talk about his son and give you a bunch of stories on Brett Hall. He was one of my most favorite players. And by the way, he came in during the Nieuwendyk, Puck and Lube. If you go back to Jim Plopinski, Theo Fleury, he came in during that time. Hence why he was easily traded at that point in time. Anyway, that's it for hockey history. All right.
Hockey history. All right.
The Kalkaska Battlers presents Hockey History. Catch the Kalkaska Battlers as they compete in the APHL. Check the skills, speed, heart. Make sure you catch a game and experience the thrill of live hockey. Go Battlers.
All right, Evan. Well, this has been another Rig-a-Ding-Dandy show. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. Lou, big thank you to you for coming on the show and sharing your experiences and thoughts. Some great stories, including the Mario Lemieux story.
I know. I never knew that. That is so cool.
That is really cool. Hall & Oates was a killer.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed. Evan, any final thoughts before we wrap it up and get going? And we see you guys next week.
Guys, I just want to say, make sure you go over. If you could do this for us, we don't often ask a little extra, but I am asking if you'll go over to our Facebook. We are only about 25 to 30 people away short of 1,000 followers on Facebook. So I'm asking, and thank you for some of you taking us to 80. Our goal also for subscribers and followers on YouTube is 100. So work with us. We're not trying to push it, our agendas and stuff, but it definitely helps us get the product out to you. So we do feel like it's a kind ask for all the work that we put in by helping us make this show happen for you guys. And I do want to say, I didn't check where you guys are all coming in from last week, but tonight I like to send a big hats off to all of you guys following my feed. So where are we at? We got over 40 of you right now just standing on my X feed. And so I want to say thanks. I don't know why you guys are listening all the way through. You must be so bored of us, but thanks again for joining us.
Well, it isn't for a wonderful look, so I think that they'll take that with our insight into knowledge. So I think it's fair to say we finally know something, maybe just a little bit about hockey, Evan. I think we're finally getting there. We're getting to the tip of the iceberg. But once again, it's been a fun-filled episode. We appreciate you guys. We are back here next week, every Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are tuning in. We have articles all the time on our website. Our guests are always featured there. We love hearing from you guys. Reach out to us, Evan at Revenev on Twitter /X, or me at hockey_2. Now, there is a new one. I think it's called Blue Sky or something. It's a new one appearing as a new potential social media one. We'll see if we can get our hands into there. We are always online. We're trying to get onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We'll let you guys know once we're out there so you can listen in when you're in the car. Evan, that's it for this episode. Yeah. We've gone way over time, but we appreciate it. Any final thoughts before we take it away?
Just want to throw out next week. I'm just waiting back. I'm still hearing back for confirmation. Puckpedia is on one of our partners. Hart Levine will be on. So, again, I'd love you to throw, if you got questions around the cap, sending players up, down, long-term, the LTIRs, anything around that. And as well as we're going to be updating on some stuff you can do on Puckpedia. So Hart is an incredible, just a wealth of knowledge. So I'm really excited. Hopefully it works for next week. If not, we also got, we just signed, Pavel doesn't even know this. We missed out on our Oilers talk. So for all you Oilers fans, I do have the Call to Hockey's Bruce McCurdy set to come on. So he'll be filling in on one of those dates. So we can talk about how they do their analytics, high quality shots, all that kind of stuff. Maybe he can tell us what's wrong with the goaltending. Anyway, as we say every week, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe. Have a good night, everyone.
Cheers.